Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Now, I know that many of you have been following this video series. If you haven't, I've been sitting down with my good friend, Kate Machado, who worked with me at many of the clinics I worked with, and she's a registered dietitian. And if you hadn't been following, I would encourage you to go back and watch the first videos of me sitting down with her, because we're kind of doing a progression of what to expect and what it looks like to see a dietitian and all that stuff. So go do that first and then come back and watch this one. Today's topic is something that I just want to talk about because I know that many of you talk about having these problems and feeling a certain way and I don't know what's wrong with me and all of those kind of anxiety-provoking situations when we don't know what's going on in our own body. And first of all, I want to kind of throw out a disclaimer that I would encourage you to go to your doctor. If you have anything that you think is wrong and you're worried and you don't feel right and something is wrong, go see your doctor, because we want to make sure that we don't have anything serious going on. Because Kate and I aren't physicians. We'll help you on our side, but there's definitely a place in your treatment team for a doctor, and we need to make sure that we're monitoring that. Mm-hmm. So I guess my question to Kate, since I'm rambling all over the place, is what are some symptoms and things that can happen when someone is either malnutrition, they're underfed, or they're not being fed the right things?
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's a really important topic to address, and I think to go about it from people who have, an actual experience in the field of eating disorders, because as a dietitian, specifically, I know how the complications of eating disorders can work in a body as opposed to somebody who has a different type of disease or bodily imbalance. So it's really important, I think, to work with a dietitian who knows about eating disorders. And if you can, see a doctor who also has some experience working with people who have had eating disorders, because the treatment may be a little bit different, because sometimes the symptoms may look one way because of the eating disorder, but if a doctor doesn't know that the person is doing certain behaviors, it could kind of be a little bit confusing and get improper treatment. So if you can, try to get a referral from somebody who works in the field of eating disorders for a doctor, for a dietitian, to get the right treatment. I would say, kind of to start with, a lot of the complications that I see and deal with have to do with the digestive tract. So our digestive tract starts with our mouth, and it goes through our esophagus, down to our stomach, through our small intestine, and then our large intestine, and then out our colon. So every single step along the way of the digestive tract, there can be complications for the eating disorder, no matter what type of eating disorder you have. So that being said, the complications can range from being pretty mild to really severe, and the more chronic cases, the more long-term and long-standing the medical complication or symptom will be. And sometimes it can be permanent. Sometimes it can lead to death, which is a really, hard thing to face. And so, but it is the reality of the medical side of an eating disorder. So I think, for me, some of the most common things I see that are maybe a little bit less severe, that can be kind of turned around with healthy eating again and working with a treatment team, would be, so I know that people that have bulimia might have really swollen salivary glands right here, and that can go down because those can just be clogged ducts. So those kind of things that are, being overused, that, your salivary gland is the first part of the digestive process, and it can become overstimulated, become swollen, and that can go down. So that's, a good thing to know.
That's good news.
Because a lot of people are a little bit self-conscious about that. And then going down a little bit further to our esophagus, if there is any type of purging going on, it can become completely inflamed and swollen. And then there is a little valve that is meant to go one way, kind of like a one-way door, but with purging, it pushes the flap both ways. And so that can cause reflux and then heartburn, which is that kind of burning sensation in this area of your body. And that can go away completely with proper medication from the doctor to help with that, and then decreasing and discontinuing the behavior. And so those are some of the most common, most kind of like in-your-face symptoms. And then as you go down a little bit further, there can be a lot of problems with the stomach. Sometimes when the stomach is overfed at a time, so it can be a binging and then purging, or it can be someone even with anorexia who may only eat one time per day, their stomach may shrink because it's not being used for the majority of the day, and then it gets a really large load of food, and then it becomes really distended and overwhelmed, and then the gastrointestinal juices, kind of like your digestive juices, aren't going to be at the chemical necessity. They're not going to be at the level they're supposed to be to digest the food. So it can be really painful and overwhelming for the stomach to do that. But
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the same though for binging and purging, because you're over creating those and you're overextending your stomach, and so you may acclimate, that may feel normal to you while you're in your behavior, and then as you start to get better and go through treatment, it can feel really weird, and you may notice a lot of like stomach discomfort, and that is all your body readjusting to what is a kind of a normal amount of food. So that's all just based on like physical behaviors. But then kind of taking it maybe a step deeper, there are the more nutritional deficiencies. So that can be a lot more long-term damaging. Like if you're deficient of calcium, of iron, of vitamin D, you could have really weak bones. And that if you are doing this in your late teens or mid-teens, late teens, early 20s, our bones are formed to the hardest that they're ever going to be by the age of about 25, mid-20s. And then after that, they're always going to be on the decline. And so if at the time when they're supposed to be getting stronger and stronger, they're getting weaker and weaker, there's always going to be a bone problem. And that's something, I know a lot of people who have long-term recovery, and a lot of them are therapists and dietitians in the field, and they have a lot of bone problems, bone health long-term. But that's something that, there's medication for, we can work with, but there are some things that will never go away as a side effect of the eating disorder behaviors. Another thing that can happen in reaction to some of the extreme behaviors, maybe with laxatives, are the malabsorption in your intestinal tract, and specifically your colon, of nutrients and of fluids, and that can cause long-term damage. And really, if you think about, it may sound funny, someone who's going to the bathroom regularly, it's maybe like 1 to max 3 times a day. And then if somebody's using laxatives, you can have really intense amounts of fluids and foods going through your bowels at a super high rate, 10, 20 times a day, and your body's not meant for that. And so it can really cause damage to your intestines. And I've known people who have had bags, and then colostomy bags, and that's permanent. So there are things that, taken to the extreme, can be permanent and damaging. Another one of the worst side effects that people just don't know about and can't tell is that, so when you're under eating for a long time, and it doesn't even matter what your weight is, if you're under eating for a long time, your muscles start to, your body starts to kind of eat its own muscles for energy. So it doesn't matter if you have extra fat, because your body doesn't care about your fat. It uses the muscles for energy if you're not eating everyday food for your brain. So your body will start to eat your muscles. And because our heart is a muscle that pumps blood through our body, that heart muscle can decrease and get weaker and weaker, which could lead to a heart attack or a valve problem. And that can be permanent long-term. And those are usually what could lead to death. People just have a heart attack. And they might be a young woman that appeared to be normal on the outside, which is always what is the hardest for people to accept. But I think if you are one of those people, that could be the case for you. And so it's really important to get help, to start to eat again regularly with the help of a treatment team, and to get medical help where required. They can do a lot of tests to see how your heart is functioning. We can do a lot of tests to see what type of gastric, your stomach juices, how they're doing, if they're able to digest the food properly. Because after avoiding and restricting certain foods, you can lose the chemical to digest that food. And then, like, sometimes people don't eat meat for so long they stop producing the enzymes to digest meat. So when they start eating meat, it can be a painful experience. They could be really bloated, pretty gassy, but that goes away.
Yeah.
That's just one of the humps to get over in recovery. But it's worth going through that physical discomfort temporarily for long-term recovery. So I think that, and I've seen a lot of the swollen and inflamed esophagus from binging and purging so much that it starts to bleed, and then there is blood in your vomit. And that could mean that there's a tear in your esophagus wall, and that could lead to an emergency. So that would be something you would need to see a doctor for right away, and could have long-term complications.
Yeah, and I mean, I think all of these things, like I always say, like nothing that I'm doing or putting, any information I'm putting out isn't to scare you, but I think that a lot of information is out there that isn't true, and it's not giving you the full picture of what can happen. And I want you to be really informed, because it's your body, it's your life, I understand, but I want you to know all the information so that we can help the best that we can.
Yeah.
And knowing when you're feeling some discomfort, or why am I so gassy today, or I'm so sore, and why do I have heartburn every night, or these are things that you can kind of know what's going on. And if you do see blood in your stool, in your throat, in your vomit, any kind of thing, those are, you need to go see a doctor.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And just because it may have happened to you once and they said, and that's one of the things where you really need to be honest with any healthcare provider, because if you don't tell them the behaviors you're doing, they can't help you, because they're maybe searching for a reason that there may be blood, and if you don't tell them that you're actually having the behaviors that could cause it, they can't help you.
Yeah.
So it's really important.
And I know it's hard and we worry, but like Kate was saying, people will come to her. The best way is through referral, and that's the best way to find a dietitian that specializes in eating disorders. And a lot of therapists and dietitians know doctors. Mm-hmm. We all know each other. To be honest, the eating disorder world of professionals is pretty small.
Yeah.
And we usually know one another, and we know people we've referred and we're comfortable working with. So ask. It's okay to ask. How do we get information if we don't ask people, right? So ask whoever you're working with, or maybe your mom's friend is a nurse who's worked with you. I mean, however you need to get your information, try to find people around that can help you, because these complications, a lot of them can be fixed through proper health and
rehabilitation with food, basically getting your nutrients in balance. And there's a lot of tests we can do, and those are really just standard that would be covered in getting treatment. And so if you feel like something's wrong, make sure you address it and tell them, and somebody takes it seriously enough to figure out if it is a serious complication or not. But yeah, this isn't something to scare you, but it's just the reality of what is happening in your body when you're using certain behaviors.
Yeah, exactly. So make sure you're addressing those and taking care of yourself, because the reason that I'm doing these videos and the reason I've asked Kate here is so that we can work together. I want you to get better. I want things to be better. Things can be fixed, and we just need to find out what's wrong and know how to fix it. Yeah. Okay? So thanks for checking in again. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that when I post other videos, you know about it, and you can check those out as well. And always leave comments below if there's other questions you have and things like that, and concerns or things you've learned through your doctor. Let me know about it, and if Kate's available, we'll maybe answer some of those, and we'll try to just increase the positive information out there as we work towards a healthy mind and a healthy body.